Welcome to the Conscious Style podcast. I'm Stella, and today I have the great pleasure of chatting with Mandy Lee about where to begin with defining your personal style, the world of trend forecasting, how to engage with trends while still ensuring that we're not over-consuming, tips for seeking out coveted secondhand items, and so much more. I'm really excited for this conversation. Mandy is a fashion analyst, trend forecaster, and writer based in New York City. And Mandy is also one of my favorite people to follow online because she provides so much educational and thought provoking content around personal style, fashion commentary, runway critique, and trend research. And this content has actually helped shape fashion conversations on TikTok as well. So, Mandy writes a newsletter titled Cyclical and can also be found on Instagram and TikTok at Old Loser in Brooklyn. Mandy, I'm so delighted to have you on the podcast. Before we dive into the details of your career and your take on trends, the first question we're asking everybody in this segment of the podcast is, what does conscious style mean to you?
Hi, wow, what an intro. I am tickled. Thank you so much. Um, I guess conscious style I think is different for everybody, right? Like everyone consumes in a different way, has different values, but to me, I feel like it means shopping and purchasing with intention. And
Mm.
I think when you're purchasing with intention to try and wear forever, that to me is a good sustainable purchase. It doesn't even matter like where it's from to me. I think the more important thing is buying with intention to wear for as long as you possibly can.
So I love that you started the episode off with that word intention.
Yay.
And yeah, so actually drawing on that, maybe to dive a bit deeper into the conversation around your take on style, I was wondering if you could just tell us a bit about your personal style journey, because I mean, that is one of the best parts about following you, just your incredible outfits and the way you pair things together.
Thank
And
you.
I'm always curious, like, where do you see your personal style journey starting and how it's evolved, and like your really analytically curious lens on fashion? What led you to the work you're committed to today?
I mean, I've always been like an annoying little kid. Like I'm just fascinated by like kind of random things. Like I was really obsessed with freak weather for a long time. Like just as an example, I'll just get really into it and try to learn as much as I can. And I think what I like about the things that I like are there's so many anomalies, right? Like there are patterns that
Mm.
you can track and kind of see an end goal. So I definitely have the gift of foresight, but it's mostly from growing up and being annoying and curious. My curiosity has really led me to where I am today. Um, and a lot of it was just, learning and observing and kind of forming my own way of kind of doing things. I really try not to approach things the way that like I guess the internet might want me to. I really don't make my videos with the intention of going viral. I really just try to make things that I find interesting and maybe helpful sometimes because you know I mean I do make a lot of content about trends and forecasting, but it's always like to me, I approach it with the more you know, like arming yourself with knowledge allows you to make better decisions. And that's
Mm.
how I try to approach it. But I guess to answer your question, I mean, I've always been interested in fashion. I grew up in a very, very small town, rural New England. My grandparents are dairy farmers. Like I never, I guess, had like the resources around me where I thought working in fashion would be possible. So I kind of thought like, hey, if I work in beauty, maybe I can jump to fashion because a lot of people are cross industry. So that's really what I did.
Mm.
So I was doing planning and forecasting for beauty for like 3 years before I started doing fashion content. And it was just my, the path that I was like able to take. I lived in Boston for almost 10 years and there's no fashion there. Um, and so, when I moved to New York, I was like, I really want to do this. It's hard when you have no connections or resources, or you're a little older and can't get internships. But I kind of forged my own path. But yeah, I mean, I guess I've always just been interested in fashion and expression, but my passion really is with analytics, data, forecasting. Like that's what, drives me. And I have more interest than just fashion. Like my start was with beauty, and I love beauty trends, like especially I think they're really, really fascinating. I think they're almost worse than fashion trends sometimes. Maybe not impact wise, but the way that they like are so insane, especially on TikTok. Like everyone is froths at the mouth over like certain products, but it's like there's 1,000 other products that do the same thing, maybe better. But just the fact that it's viral like makes it so desirable, that like that really fascinates me as well. Um, but yeah, that's just I guess a little about my background.
Yeah, no, that's really fascinating. And I love how it all stems from your like childish curiosity. I feel like, growing up's funny because we're always returning to parts of ourselves that we kind of didn't realize were still there.
Yeah.
And do you think your like style, because your style is also so curious to me, not in like, I mean, like it seems like you are so curious about so many different things and are able to pair uncharacteristic or things that other people wouldn't think to pair together. And that reminds me of like a childish curiosity as well. Do you think that plays into your style too?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, I think the first time I ever had um more control over what I was wearing was, you know, the Tumblr era. I was a very early user. I think 2008 I was on there, and oh my God, it shaped me in so many different ways. Like again, I grew up in a really small town, and I feel like if I wasn't exposed to like the discourse on Tumblr, the style, the just sharing of ideas, I would not be the same person. Absolutely not. Um, so like I guess the first time I was really into fashion and could like control it was probably around then, like 2008, maybe. Um, my late teens, and thrifting was not cool back then. Like you did not want to be, it was very, I mean, it's very classist, but
Yeah.
that's what it was back then. And you really didn't want to be seen at the thrift store. But again, my friends and I were like freaks, and we had so much fun the early days. Like I still think about it and how good the thrifting used to be. It is not the same. I hate thrifting in New York. It is trash. Um,
Mm,
but my fondest memories are like going to Savers, which is just like a chain, maybe in New England only, but it's just like a chain thrift. And oh my God, it used to be so good. Like everything was like $2, and we just had so much fun cutting things up. But then like my aesthetic didn't really change. Like I got a little more businessy as I started like working more in Boston, but I was always sort of like a lot of black, a lot of like kind of punk indie influence. And now I think my style is a lot more high low. Still a
mm,
lot of pieces are thrifted and vintage, but I've also incorporated more like designer pieces. I have like very specific designers that I turn to and I'm really inspired by. I'm not like a label whore, I guess, if you will, but I do have
mm.
like certain brands that I just really gravitate towards that feel like me. And I think, I try to actually I don't even try. It just is kind of unintentionally high low. Um, do you know the like 3-word method? Have you heard of that?
No.
It's
No, I
like
don't think so.
this celebrity stylist, her name's Allison. She came up with this method to like help you with your personal style. It's like find the 3 words that like describe it, and then that can
Hmm.
sort of help you like with shopping and whatever. And I still haven't found my 3 words. I find that really hard, but high
Yeah.
low is definitely one of them. Like very strong about that. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Like I just try to wear things that are interesting. Like I love statement
Mm,
pieces, but I also love monochrome and like black and white. Black and white will always be my like go-to colors. It's what I used to wear when I first started getting into style. It's like pretty much only black,
mm,
and that's always my like comfort zone. I also love crazy weird silhouettes. that's, something I don't know, I just gravitate towards. I don't really wear pants. So, the paradox of choice is eliminated with that. And that I find really helpful. Like some people might look at that as restrictive, where it's like you don't shop an entire category. No, I don't.
Right.
Because I also don't wear sneakers, and it's just like I don't have to look at those pages when I'm shopping. I don't think about it. And to me, that's helped my shopping, just my personal style, and what I feel comfortable with is like eliminating things that I don't really care for. Um, and I don't think that everyone needs to do that necessarily, but that just really, really helps me.
Yeah, I think that's like really great insight. And I think, obviously everybody's personal style journey is different. But what I found so interesting about you and like your world is the way your job in trend forecasting, is complemented by such a strong sense of personal style. And I want to circle back to your style as well, but to, I guess, understand a bit more about the industry you work in and the behind the scenes of your work and how that plays into your life. I was wondering if we could just chat a bit about trend cycles to start with.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of a mystical thing to a lot of people, myself included, before I was like really looking into it. But because we hear about trends all the time, like it's everywhere, but we don't really understand like how trend cycles come about or work. And I also heard about like micro trends for the
Mhm.
first time through your content, and it's like been so eye opening to like dive into that side of the business of fashion. But yeah, I was wondering if you could share a bit about how trend cycles and micro trend cycles as well like come about, and then the role of the trend forecaster as well in that
Mhm.
process.
Yeah, I mean, the simplest role for trend forecasters, if you work for like a specific agency, is usually to inform clients about what's to come so they can make, buying decisions or production decisions to help them, sell things. Like it can be really broad too, like mini skirts, for example. Everyone's making mini skirts. And 2 years ago, these brands knew that maybe even longer than that, honestly, maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, these brands knew they would have to start producing mini skirts. That's just, if you want to keep up, if you want your brand to compete and be desirable, sometimes you do have to go with these more macro level trends. Um, we're not talking like, and then you can even get more granular, like denim mini skirts,
Mm.
vinyl, like it's a lot. It depends on like the level of detail that clients are looking for, but that's usually the main job and like outcome is to inform clients about what's to come so they can, create their plan for the next couple of years. That also feeds into colors. Colors is a big one too. Um, Material, silhouettes, just categories, even. It really depends on like the level of detail. And then something that you probably see a lot on TikTok are like videos where it's like trend predictions from like random accounts.
Yeah.
Those are not usually predictions. Like I saw a bunch where it was like capris, like rosettes, pinstripes. Those are all trends that are already happening. That's not a forecast.
Mm.
It's more of like an observation about what's already happening. Um, it's not really a forecast. A forecast is looking out a year, 2 years, 3 years in advance. Like if I made a video where it was like these are like true forecasts and it started happening like the next week, I would feel like a failure because it's not a forecast. It's just an observation of what you're seeing around you. There is
Yeah.
a really big difference, but um I guess to circle back talking about like what trend cycles are is it's sort of like if you think of a bell curve shape, that's sort of
Hmm.
how cycles look, I guess, visually. And they're really driven by popularity, and a lot of that is through acceptance, like on the consumer level, is like, do consumers
Hmm.
accept this? Is it desirable? Who is like influencing this trend? And like 20, 30 years ago, the folks with the most influence were like magazine editors, rock stars, celebrities, like things you would not online like wasn't that big of a source for like trends or inspiration or influence really. It was like who is wearing what in like the celebrity world or like the editor,
Mm.
the music world. And now, because there are so many different channels of influence, you still have all of those traditional ones, but then, you have influences like stuff you see on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, like influencing your buying decisions. And like what I was saying about makeup earlier, like you can't even find Rare Beauty blush because everyone is influencing you to purchase that specific blush. Um, so it's a lot of like, yes, it's like seeking out, advice like what should I buy if I don't know? Like that's a lot of the time like what people are looking for when these like viral moments happen, but most of the time it's not. Most of the time it's like creating like this buzz and tension, and like driving actual action to purchase those things. Um,
Hmm.
it's really like I feel like it's kind of hard to explain, but I feel like most people listening have experienced that phenomenon um, firsthand. So it's kind of like you kind of already know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And then micro trends are like more quick, super, super quick.
Hmm.
Like, and I don't think it's definitely slowed down. Like I made that first video that you're talking about in like spring of 2021, so it's been almost like
Yeah.
2 years, and that was when like the avant basic House of Sunny style was very, very popular, and it's kind of not that anymore. The pendulum has really shifted to this more kind of like you're either like more of a maximalist with like your expression, or you're sort of like the Matilda Durf sort of like
Mm.
blazer, nice pants, boots kind of gal. So the kind of main trends have definitely shifted over the last 2 years, but that was like, oh my God, in like 2020, 2021, microtrends were like ruled the internet. And yeah, my content definitely has driven that conversation. I still hear people like quoting some videos I've made like 2 years ago, like to this day, it's crazy. Like word for word, like it's crazy and surreal that my words have like had that impact on people. But yeah, it's a quicker cycle. And like
Mm.
now I feel like it's definitely slowed down because people are so aware, like, oh, I don't want to buy a micro trend. Like, I don't want to be labeled as like a trend hopper, but it still happens. And I think that it happens more in niche circles because style and aesthetics have become so niche. Everything is a core.
Right.
I'm holding a highlighter in my hand. Highlighter core is going to be a new, like, it's crazy. And this like nicheification of the way people label things and just style in general has created like I think micro trends in very specific um aesthetics. So if you're like a cottagecore girly, there are like specific micro trends and like super, viral things within that category that might not translate to more of like the baddies and like the, I don't know, futuristic else. Like it's every like niche has its kind of own uh micro.
Micro trend.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how I think it's shifted. It used to be a lot more like macro, and now it's really micro. And something that I talked about a while ago, like one of my favorite videos I've ever made, I said I was talking about like my forecasting for the trend cycle itself. And I still think this to this day, but I think I said something like there we'll reach a point where there's so many micro trends that they'll be hard to identify,
Yes.
and the cycle will kind of implode in on itself. And I think that's one of my best predictions to date because you can see it happening now, like with what I described. Like it's hard to identify like what are the micro trends now. Like I can think of like the Miu Miu ballet flats, which is really interesting because this phenomenon has even trickled into like luxury becoming,
Hmm.
consumed more than I think ever before. And like having these like it items, equals like signaling that you know what's
Yeah.
cool, and that signaling that you can afford it, and you're kind of like ahead of the curve, or just whatever. But it's crazy, like I this phenomenon has definitely infiltrated luxury price points, in addition to more like fast fashion micro trends, which is really crazy. That's something I don't think I've seen that level of luxury consumption for like the average person, like maybe ever. Um,
Mm,
it's wild. But yeah, that's just like very, very brief. I have videos about going into this more on my page, because it's a lot. It's a lot to take in.
yeah.
But that's just like kind of a very brief overview.
Yeah, and I feel like everybody listening should check out your videos because they explain so well, like these very complex kind of phenomenons and trend cycles in such great like detail. So yeah, you should definitely go check out Mandy's work and content. But I was kind of thinking as you were speaking, like it's really wild that there are so many micro trends and kind of trend cycles occurring at the same time. And when you said trend forecasters, like their job is almost to zoom out and look at things 2 years, 3 years ahead of the game. What do you look at? Like, how do you start to signal like what's going to come up in so far ahead of we've even like lived? If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, so the culture surrounding fashion is almost more important to look at than the actual like runway shows and like what designers are showing when it comes to forecasting. Like cultural context is so important, and it actually like has made me step back in sharing forecasting on TikTok, because um I am not, how do I say this? Um it really bums me out the way that trend forecasting gets discussed on TikTok, and gets um in like the videos that like other people put out, because again, it's mostly not forecasting. It's not a prediction.
Hmm.
It's literally like what is happening in front of you. And it's a me problem, really, because it's my profession and I want to protect whatever like integrity it has left on the internet. Um and I mean, it's really interesting too, because when I first started doing these videos like a year and a half ago ish, I got like death threats from talking about like ballet flats are going to come back in like summer of 2021. Um, Death threats. Like it was
What?
my indie sleeves video. Like I got like
Oh yes.
extremely hateful comments, like making fun of like my job. Somebody like tried to insult me by like, you went and got your master's to do this, and I'm like, I don't have my master's, but thank you for
What?
thinking, like, I'm smart. Like it was the weirdest backhanded compliment ever. But yeah, that's
People are so strange.
I think like what you were mentioning though about zooming out to figure out what's to come. So much of it really does need to come from like politics, climate,
Mm,
um, just general attitudes. You know, presidential years, like election years, are a big factor with trends. Even like, 2020, the start of a new like decade, is sort of like a factor. Obviously, the
mhm,
pandemic, you couldn't forecast the pandemic, but because the pandemic happened, it changed so much forecasting because of this like major event. Like these like attitudes and like consumer feelings and behaviors is really like what drives trends more so than the fashion itself. It's like these external factors, like what people are valuing, like wellness. Like if it's going to be a big year for like health and wellness, that will impact the larger cycle as a whole. It's a lot of different factors. We don't really say like pinstripes are going to trend. It's a bigger like more macro conversation. It's like maybe more like simplistic prints,
mm,
more darker tones, more like of serious sort of like influence, depending on like the state of the world. um that's more of what goes on behind the scenes, or like things that don't necessarily have to do with fashion that impact the cycle,
Right.
because it feeds into
Yeah.
it feeds into the greater like environment and just culture, really. Like, it's not just the fashion.
Yeah, and I mean that's the interesting thing about fashion is it's never just the
Mhm.
clothing. Like there is so many layers behind it, and I think that that's something that a lot of us don't think about when we think
Mhm.
about trends. Like there's so much thought and planning and kind of context that has gone on behind
Mhm.
this, this thing that you are now drawn to out of some like it feels like an innate desire, right? I don't know, sometimes I feel like that when I see something that I feel just drawn to and I can't explain it, but it's really interesting to hear about like the cultural and historical and political like drivers and underlying forces that yeah you have to consider when we think about trends.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there is a reason why nostalgia became such a theme during the COVID era. People, and that's why, Y2K just absolutely exploded during the pandemic. Like,
Yeah.
it was climbing before then, but as soon as COVID hit, like, people were desperate for like fond memories. And it's not because, someone on TikTok like wore a all pink little bejeweled outfit and that's why Y2K got popular. No, like, there are other worldly factors that contribute to that. And like what you see now, like with more leaning more in like the gloomier, darker, moodier sort of like vibe. I've called it indie sleaze before, but it's really just like
Hmm.
this kind of more goth, darker, moodier energy like that. It's for a reason. It's not just because, like, okay, we're bored with color, we're moving to darker. That does happen. It is a factor. The pendulum does always swing, but there are like other factors involved that drive
Yeah.
those changes from the masses.
Mm, for sure. And I feel like hearing this information is just so great to have like in my mind, even when I'm questioning, like you were saying at the beginning of the episode, the intention behind buying something. Is this something that truly aligns with like what I want, how I want to present, what I feel most confident in? Where are the forces coming from in my mind and like who's shaping the conversation? And it's quite difficult to disentangle a lot of the time. Um, but it's just so good to be aware of. And I mean, in my world, like it feels like trends have gotten a lot faster, also with like the advent of fast fashion. And I feel like that is something that you may have witnessed as well. And I was wondering if, like, yeah, what is your thought on that? And also, have there been any major ways that you've noticed trend cycles changing since starting in the fashion trend space?
Yeah, I mean, I there's sort like, I guess, a debate about whether or not the cycle has sped up. I personally think it has, for sure. I think it's come to a place really where there is no macro trends. Like, what, like, if I were to ask, everyone listening, what is the most popular style right now? I think everyone would have maybe a different idea. Um, right now, like in this very like stamp in time, what is it, January 5th? I think
Hmm.
like what Bella Hadid has been wearing is sort of the macro trend if you wanted to like put your finger on it, but it's more of like her individual pieces, like people are pulling and then like incorporating it, like those little Uggs, like moto jackets, little
Yes.
short shorts, like these are just small things that I feel like have had a really big impact, but they're not necessarily styled like the exact same way. So it's kind of hard to be like, what is like the overarching trend right now? It used to be, it was Y2K, it was like business, like casual, it was athleisure. Um, and now it's sort of like, I can't even answer that question really. There's so much going on. Um, and yeah, it is wild, and I do think that the cycle has sped up, yes. And it's not just the cycle itself, it's what's even more concerning, I think, is the impulsivity of
Hmm.
shopping. and this sort of like way that people look at it, I think. Like people want instant gratification. People want to make
Yeah.
sure that they are able to signal to others that, they know what's cool, they know like what's happening. I question sometimes, it's like, do you even like it?
Yeah.
Even because trust me, like there were like 4 months during the pandemic where I was like a total victim to, a victim of my own creation. Like I was just buying random because I was like, I don't know, like I want to change my whole aesthetic. Like, it never felt like me, and I wasted, you know, 4 months of like impulse purchasing. I don't think I wear anything I bought during that time period, and it was, I don't regret it though because it was a good learning, and it
Mm,
made me more confident in my style and what I like. And I
right.
do, I'm not out here like judging people. I'm really talking about it as like an more like macro, not so granular sort of concept. Um, but I think it's really like the behavior of shopping is like has changed so much. So much. I remember I wanted like an iPod Touch in when I was in high school, and I saved up for like a month to get it. And I feel like now it's like people will just put that on their credit card and be done with it because they just want it like right away. And I don't know,
Yeah,
I'd be interested. I don't have the data or anything, but I feel like credit card debt has to be up.
surely. Yeah, no, I agree. And I think even like in the more conscious fashion movement, I think we often relate trends to impulsivity. And while that sometimes feels right, it also doesn't, because it means like you're demonizing trends instead of also the behavior, and looking at the way we relate to trends that are coming our way and the way trends are existing in the fashion space. And I feel like something interesting I've also picked up on, yeah, in the past year or so, is this idea that sustainable fashion is a trend, um, which has caused like debate. And I was really wondering like what your thoughts are on this. Yeah, this kind of sentiment that sustainable fashion is a trend.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if trend would be the word I use to describe it. Maybe like we can call it a trend just for the sake of calling it one. I think it's more of like an awareness, um, and more of a behavior that, some folks want to adopt. And also like what is sustainability? I think a lot like people have a lot of different definitions for it. Personally, I think about it as like trying my best. I really do, like where everyone's out here just trying to do their best with the circumstances that they're in. Not everyone can be, nobody is a perfect consumer. Nobody. You live in a capitalist society. Please do not beat yourself up for not being like the most sustainable person you can possibly be. It's impossible, really. That being said, it's not,
100%.
I think a lot of folks use that as an excuse to overconsume just because like you can't be perfect. It really is impossible. So trying your best, why would I bother? I guess because Shein is an absolute monster and is going to kill us all. Um, like that, I feel like is kind of the attitude that some folks have when it comes to like approaching overconsumption. Is like I don't care. um i just want I just want things, and it's like this addiction. I think there like a lot of people are addicted to new things, and like the dopamine boost of knowing you have something coming in the mail, and then like being able to wear and snap your Instagram photo. It's like this whole thing, and then it's like, okay, like the charm is gone. Do I even like this? Am I even gonna wear it again? But yeah, I don't I find it, I don't know why I feel icky calling sustainability a trend, because to me it's not. But I think to other people
Hmm.
it probably is. But again, I think it's so personal, and like the way you consume. If you are trying to be more sustainable, there are probably certain things that you do that I don't, and certain things that I don't that you do. Everyone's like on their own journey, and I don't like the vilification of the all or nothing mentality. That really bothers me because it discourages people from trying anything. I think the vilification of being like the perfect consumer um, is sort of the detriment for the movement to pick up in the first place. And then I kind of think like it's in like its own echo chamber sometimes, and it's sort of like you can't really
Hmm.
win. You really can't. So I feel like you need to look within and figure out what you value and like why you want to be a more sustainable consumer, and be okay with the fact that any effort is a good effort and you do not have to be perfect. Like if you just make a couple of changes in your life, like that's more than a lot of other people do. So be proud of that.
Right. Yeah, that's such a good point, and I completely agree. I'm always trying to say, like, in this movement, we want it to be as inclusive as possible. So why would we prescribe exactly how
Mhm.
it's meant to look and exactly how it's meant to be done? And any effort is better than none. And we want people to have the grace and courage to just try,
Mhm.
even if it's something really small. And I think that, it's an interesting question in my mind, like, is sustainability a trend? But I think I also feel icky about it. And I think partly because, well, maybe the main reason in my mind is also because it's sustainability has been such an age
Yeah.
old, like, practice. It's something that goes way back. It's more so a way of life, and as you were speaking about, also a mindset than it is a specific way of engaging with
Mhm.
consumerism or a specific way of, acquiring clothing. So I think to speak about it as a trend almost just makes it feel so,
Short.
I don't know,
It's
based on
short-lived.
consumption. Exactly. Like there's no depth to
Yeah.
it. So yeah, I really resonated with what you said, and agree that we can't really vilify people and demonize people if we want to encourage like a holistic sense of
Mhm.
change, um, and make it also fun and exciting. So
Yeah.
I think that's also why I find like your approach to style and like really the emphasis on personal style and learning about yourself and what makes you feel good and the silhouettes and the colors and all of the elements in the way that you dress that really affirm who you are, um, which regardless of where you're shopping, feeds into that intention, like
Mhm.
why are you buying, how many ways you're going to get out of it, and almost immediately kind of slows down and makes you a more intentional, conscious person engaging in
Mhm.
fashion in general, I think. And I read this interview or article that you were featured in on Who What Wear, where you said
Oh,
newness and abundance. Yeah. It was so good that I had to like bring it in
that's an
and quote
old
it.
one.
I know, but this quote, like it lives in my head rent
Oh my
free. Like it just,
god.
I don't know. I reference it when I think about like myself and trends as well because it's so difficult. It's so easy to, yeah, there's so much convincing us to buy all the time.
Mhm.
But when I read this quote where you said like newness and abundance aren't the answer to having a versatile wearable wardrobe that is you, I was like, okay, that I need to remember
I love
because
that.
yeah, I think we've done we've done a previous episode with like a fashion psychologist, Shakayla Forbes Bell, and she was really speaking about the psychology behind this desire for newness and this desirability of novelty.
Mm.
So I've just been trying to be aware of where that sits in my own head, and that quote really comes up a lot.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
It's a pleasure. I was wondering, personal style is also such a long and almost lifelong
Mhm.
journey, but starting to discover like what you like is often quite a tricky point to be at as well. And do you have any tips for somebody who's like starting their personal style journey, wants to define what their personal style is? Do you have any advice?
This is seriously, and I know you don't want to hear this, people. I know it's gonna suck to hear, but do go on a no buy clothing, shoes, accessories, except for essentials. Like if something breaks or you need something for work or whatever, do not buy anything for like 2 or 3 months. Get dressed every day, even if you have nowhere to be. Just put together an outfit, take a picture of it, because you're not going to remember all your outfits for this amount of time. Take a picture of it just for you. It doesn't have to go anywhere. Put it in a folder. And after like do like a weekly 2-week check-in on this folder. What are some patterns that you're noticing with your own wardrobe? What colors are you drawn to? What are your like signature pieces that you are repeating? Repetition does not get talked about enough in the personal style world, but repetition creates personal style. You need to
Mm.
repeatedly wear similar things, sometimes the same item, to create this image of your personal style. Like I'm wearing this clock choker that I've been wearing for like 2 years in a row. I'm telling you, half my mentions are on TikTok are people tagging me in clock things. I'm not even like into clocks, but like people will see that, recognize, and think of me, and that's so to me that's so satisfying because it's like I didn't even like, try. It's just I love this necklace and I really haven't taken it off in 2 years, and um people see it and tag, like that's so nice that one piece of my style is recognizable. And when people are like, I thought you would love this, or like you would love this or that, or I thought of you when I saw that, you are creating like a brand, a personal style. Like if other people can even like recognize it, that's really big. But seriously, my advice is to look at the patterns that you're creating with what you have. And then it's easier to discover the gaps in your wardrobe. So say, you're doing this exercise with your wardrobe, you're committing to not buying anything, and then you realize halfway through, man, if I had like a little black mini skirt, I could wear this and that and use this and that. Like the gaps in your wardrobe will start to become more clear, and then you have like an actionable list to work off of when you start shopping again, and it's not going to just be like random that you see and you're tempted by. Seriously, like, and this isn't a ploy to do like a no buy or like stop buying things, propaganda advertisement or whatever. I'm telling you that this works. When I was speaking about my time in the micro trend phase, which lasted like way too long, it was like 4 months. I was just like buying random things. I was sad. It was a pandemic. Everyone was there, you know.
Mhm.
This is what I did to get myself out of it. And it was more just like I got to stop buying things. And then that just turned into this kind of like little exercise and like challenge. And oh my God, it changed my life. It really did. Like, I first of all saved so much money and then had a deeper
Mm.
appreciation for the things I already had. Like, I was pulling out coats that I bought in like college that I hadn't worn in forever. And I was like,
Wow.
damn, this is like, I got to show you. It's right here. This coat, I bought it. It's like a little checkered brown pea coat. I bought it in like,
Oh, beautiful.
I don't know, 2014 maybe. That has been my go-to coat this winter. And I rediscovered it like
I love
2 years
that.
ago. I am surprised I didn't like get rid of it or something because I never wore it. But you will be so surprised by your creativity. And again, this is what I was talking
Mhm.
about, like the paradox of choice. If you're limited to what you already have, it's human nature to be creative with that. It really is. Like,
Yeah.
it's why I don't wear pants because I'm creative with what like my other silhouettes, give me. Um, and that is actually something I learned doing this exercise is pants give me dysphoria. I'm almost
Mm.
always unhappy and uncomfortable when I'm wearing them. So I just said, why am I like I don't need to wear pants. Nobody needs to wear any category if they don't want to. If you're more
Yep.
masculine and for you don't like dresses or you love dresses, you can eliminate that category or you can just commit to only wearing that category. Like it is your choice. Um and I really, really think that this is like the key. And I'm sure there are other ways to do it, but this is what has worked for me. I have given this advice to, almost 500,000 people. And I've gotten so many messages saying this has worked, or they kind of altered this idea and did it their own way. And, you don't have to do it exactly, but I feel like eliminating purchasing and alleviating yourself from the decision making of purchasing for a little while can make you more clear headed. And then something else I was doing during this time was making a little wish list too of like stuff that I
Mm,
thought would be, fun to get. And then I look back on it and like I don't want any of this. Like it was all like impulse. And you're gonna be so surprised like by how much you don't miss.
right.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still working
Even
through
just
my gaps. Like like a leather jacket and a black mini skirt were on that list 2 years ago. I got the leather jacket only at the end of this year. So it took like a good year and a half to find the right one. I wasn't looking for a placeholder. I was looking for the one. Still haven't found my perfect black mini. It'll happen someday, but like it just it takes time and people don't want to take the time. But the way you build your wardrobe that's going to last you forever is taking your time. It does not happen overnight.
mhm,
It's unrealistic to think that. You have to take yourself out of the like Instagram mindset of like, well, these people have, you know, tons of clothes to wear all the time. Like, why don't I? It's because they're getting all that shit for free, guys.
yeah,
You have to know that it's not normal. um and I love trying new things, but I turn down probably 80% of PR because either I don't like it or I know I'm accepting it for just to like appease them, and it's my life. I don't
mm,
need to invite more that I don't want or feel 100% like excited about. I've discovered a lot of great brands from PR, but it's always needed to have that spark for me to want to accept it. And then, the people that who you love their style that are like big on social media, they are getting all their clothes for free. They're not spending a dime on that. And it's not just like Prada is sending them a bag or whatever. It's like far-fetched matches are giving them store credit and they can get whatever they want. Or they're buying stuff and then returning it after they're done with their like
mm,
Instagram picture. Like this behavior behind the scenes, I think, informs the more average consumer and like sets this
yeah,
weird expectation that like this is normal and attainable. It is not. It is not. And you don't need to copy those behaviors or even idolize them because it's not realistic. It really isn't. Even for influencers, like it's not realistic to have that much stuff. Half that stuff is getting returned or it's on loan. Like behind the
yeah,
scenes is alarming. Um, and I feel like it needs to be talked about because people are out here thinking that this is like just normal to have a new outfit every single day. It is not.
yeah,
Learn to be creative within your own wardrobe. It's not going to be a hit every time. It's okay. Have fun.
mhm,
Like experiment. Like it's a joy to get dressed every day. And it shouldn't really feel like a chore or like a pressure. Like if you want to wear sweatpants one day, do it. You should do what brings you joy. Um, but yeah, I have so many thoughts on this. I could keep going on, but I'm gonna end it there.
No, those are really great tips, and it's sometimes like the most simple tips that are so powerful and even joyful, as you were saying. And I think we also don't realize how many factors are at play um, before we take a pause on shopping. Just like how many things are influencing us and entering our mindset and convincing
Mhm,
us to buy, and what trying to convince us what will make us feel good without us even like just taking a step back and be like, actually, let's look at what I have. Let's look at what makes me
mhm,
feel good with what I have. And I can unpause my shopping from there. But I loved what you were saying about creativity often needs limits to be able to thrive. Um, and we also have like this past episode with stylist Alyssa Baltempo, where she has this phrase which I've never forgotten, which is like her motto or mantra is creativity over consumption.
mhm. Love
And I
that.
think shifting into that is quite, it's a process and it's a challenge, but like you said, these things take time, and if you're really committed to discovering more about yourself, actually, which is what this process is mostly about, then you have to commit yourself to it and mess up
Mhm.
sometimes, but mostly have fun.
I mean, yeah,
So I love those
I've
tips.
worn some hideous outfits before. I'll be the first to admit. And also, I don't think my style is really special. It's just it's me. I'm not out here
Yeah.
thinking I have the best style in the world because I don't. It's just, and you know, trust me, a lot of people tell me, but I'm happy with it. It makes me happy, and I have no fear because I know what I like, and I don't care if really other people don't like it. And that's just the reality is not everyone will like it, but I'd rather, you know, take chances and have fun than, you know, limit my expression, I guess. um, but then I don't know, there's also a factor of safety. If you have a crazy out there
Mm,
style, please prioritize your safety. It's not, you don't need to be a fashion icon every day if your safety is at risk, and that's especially true for, you know, queer individuals. um, it
yeah.
in I really try to make sure I mention that at least once in these conversations because um, it's important. Like expression is great and important, but do not sacrifice your safety. And that sucks that
Mm,
people even have to think about that. But I got a comment one time, um, kind of reminding me that it's important and I've never forgotten it. And I always want to make sure I'm
mm,
mentioning that at least once because I don't want the message to get lost. Like self expression is not the most important thing in the world. It's great to have.
right.
It's fun, but not everyone really cares about it. Like some people
Yeah.
are fashion agnostic. They don't. It's not important. Um, and I don't. I think that's great. I think it's probably like clears up a lot of brain space for folks. And I also I have a friend who's neurodivergent, and she has like 10 of the same tops, 10 of the same bottoms, and that is what she wears every day. It's her comfort.
Mm,
It's a choice that has been eliminated from her having to think about every day. And I think that's really cool. I actually really think that's cool, to have
yep.
like a
Same.
uniform. Yeah.
Yes.
This is like a topic I'm obviously very passionate about, and I could just go on and on. Really good.
No, same. Honestly, there are so many days where I wish I just had a uniform
Mhm.
because some of the coolest people I know have like personal uniforms, and it never fails to look good because it's so unique actually in its simplicity.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I have like two more
Uh-huh.
questions for you, but I wanted to we chatted about like trends and we've chatted about style, and I wanted to ask you about the intersection of the two because it's something that I know like yeah, you got me thinking about, but is there a way to both participate in trends and mediate your personal consumption? And like, what is the relationship between trends and personal style? How do we balance both and make sure we're
Mhm.
not over consuming?
Yeah, so I think you know, take what I say with a grain of salt because I am a little bit numb to trends just because it's my day in and day out, and I've sort of, I don't know, my brain is kind of like it's just so trained to know what I like and know if I'll wear it for longer. um which again, it takes, these things take practice, they really do. But I think absolutely you can participate in trends and still be, you know, true to your personal style, or if you're figuring out your personal style, I really don't see anything wrong with like you know, hopping on a trend now and again. I what I do think though is to think about it. If you're purchasing something because
Hmm.
it's an impulse and it's going to make you feel good in the moment, but you haven't thought about like what you'd wear it with, or how, you know, is it seasonal? Can you wear it in the rain? Is it walkable? Is it like a sitting down outfit, a standing up outfit? Like, is it for your everyday? Is it occasion based? Like, these are just little things to think about, you know, and especially for me, like I love voluminous, kind of fancy, I guess, clothes. But I have to stop myself because it's like I can't just. This isn't something I can really wear on the day to day. If it's for an event or something, maybe. But those are things that I kind of have to pump the brakes with personally. Um,
Mhm.
and I think the truly, truly like the most important thing when you're aware that something is trendy, because again, knowledge is power. And I think when people know something's a trend, it can either push them really strongly in one direction or the other. Some people do not want to be associated whatsoever with anything trendy, and they'll purposely like avoid it. And then on the flip side, if somebody
Mm.
hears that something's trendy, they're going to hop on it without question. Try to find the middle. I know it's hard, but like you don't have to be like pro or anti trend, because eventually your style will get trendy at one point or another and then fade out unless you're just riding the trend wave. Be okay with it. Like I've always been like a flats girl. I love all shoes. That's my kryptonite personally. But I love flats and I've always worn flats, and they're trendy now, but I'll be wearing them after people hate them again. That's I like them. Have conviction. Have conviction with what you like. If Bella Hadid isn't wearing it, who cares? Really, like it's it's your life. Like you get to decide what's cool. And here's another thing, just again, personal anecdote that I've noticed from doing this job. Um if the comments on somebody's videos are like, is this satire? Like, are you serious with this outfit? Wait a year or two. Wait a year or two, because something that they're wearing will get trendy. And I think my favorite example,
That's so true.
well, I made a video about this a year and a half ago, and I got a little bit of backlash because it's like, I don't know, I think people just didn't really like see the vision, which happens kind of a lot with my content because forward thinking, it's hard to get people on board with something that they can't see. Um, And one of my favorite examples of this is I have a friend, tiny Jewish girl. Her name's Clara. Amazing, fantastic, kind of more maximalist, eccentric dresser. She has this pair of Marc Jacobs micro shorts that look like like boy short underwear that have like a higher cut on the
Mhm.
hip. She wore those like 2 years ago. Oh my god, did the internet eat her alive. Clara doesn't give a shit. So like it was more like I was feeling secondhand anger for her, because at that
Mm.
point I already knew that micro shorts were coming. Guess who showed them a year later? Mew Mew. Guess who's wearing them at the end of 2022? Kendall Jenner. Y'all owe Clara an apology. No, but really, like, pay attention to the people who have a personal style. I
Yes.
guarantee you some element of it will become trendy, because these are the people that don't give a shit, that are wearing what they like, and that is very powerful. um and
Mhm.
again, trends are kind of relative, I think, to like different communities and groups. So like maybe zoom out a little bit and look at kind of like other styles you might not like or be familiar with, and try to, I don't know, I don't, I think putting yourself in a box, I understand why it's appealing, but I think sometimes it's good to look elsewhere from time to time. And it doesn't mean you're straying from your style. It just means you might get a little jolt. But for me, I use trends as discovery, um, to
Mm.
sort of like discover new things. And a lot of trends are repeats, or they're resurgences, or they're revitalization of things in the past. What I feel like is different is usually the styling choices. um
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, anything can be styled to look good, really. Like, people were saying like sneaker wedges will never ever come back. They're back, babe. They're back. Don't don't knock it.
Yep.
uh yeah, just don't knock anything, because it will be back.
Yeah. That was me with like flip-flops, like slip-slop sandals, and now they're back in a big way. I don't know
Really?
what you call them in America, but like I don't know if they're called flip-flops or
Are they
like
called films?
thongs, or basically like
Yeah.
probably called thongs. Yeah. That was me a few years ago. I was like, they're not coming back. They're such beachwear, and now they are everywhere. So
Yeah.
I've seen them, yeah, in like leather and platform, and it's definitely not just like something you wear on the beach
Oh my
anymore.
god, yeah. Y2K.
Yep, but that's so true. Okay, so I want to just very briefly ask you about how you kind of source your coveted items, because I think something I've learned from you as well is like seeing clothing as investments, right? And like you have such a good way of finding these pieces that you covet online and like finding them on secondhand sites mostly as well. So I was wondering if you have any tips for people who are seeking out um, clothing items that they're particularly keen on secondhand on these platforms.
Be patient, babe. It will come. It will come. Seriously, if you look at it as like a challenge almost, um, enjoy the hunt too. Like enjoy it. Have fun waiting and looking and maybe like once or twice a week you have a spare 15 minutes, go browse your saved searches and whatever, like have fun with it. It's so exciting when it comes up. And then sometimes like something similar might come up and you might like it better than what you've originally sought after. And know that it can take years. Oh my god, it can take, if you really want something, you will be able to find it, but you have to exercise
Mm,
patience. And I really enjoy the hunt. Personally, that's very satisfying to me. And it also kind of keeps my impulse control in check, especially, if it's old season, if you can't just, click buy on like Farfetch or whatever. Um, but yeah, my recommendation to anybody who wants to search more, like not even, it doesn't even have to be luxury. Like I found some really old season Ghani dresses on Poshmark for like $60 after looking for a couple months. Like, um, yeah, my horse print Ghani dress took a while to find, but I did find
yes.
it. Great price. Look everywhere. It's seriously, like, I know it's annoying, but like just it's the way I do it, is like I have a little folder, um Poshmark, eBay, The Real Real. um I don't shop Depop personally, but I know a lot of people love Depop. Just everywhere that you can. Have your little save searches, take like 15 minutes once or twice a week if you can. But yeah, enjoy the hunt. It's so
I love that.
satisfying.
Exactly. I love that. And I have loved this conversation. This has been enlightening as well
Yeah.
around just trends and the context behind them. So I have one very last question, which we ask every guest on the podcast, and I'll end with this. So, what does a better future for fashion look like to you?
um, Awareness, accessibility, intention, and creativity, and I guess innovation too. I mean, there's
Mm,
so many factors. Like sometimes I get bummed out about the high fashion world and how terrible it can be, and I get bummed out about fast fashion because of how terrible it can be. Fashion is not the best industry. We're not out here saving the world. We're actually creating more problems, from an industry perspective. But I think a better future, at least on the like consumer level, is, um, like knowledge and just trying, just trying your best,
yeah,
really.